And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone. It is now official. Former Finance Minister Dr. Kwabena Duffour will run for president. With Ghana's economy facing the worst economic crisis in a generation, Dr. Duffour has today declared himself the man to help save the country he claims is currently on fire. He will now most certainly lock horns with former President John Mahama for the NDC flag bearership contest. Mr. Mahama is yet to declare he will run, but many expect him to. Well, today at a press conference, Dr. Kwabena Duffour laid out why he believes he is the man for the job.
Fellow countrymen and women, today Ghana, our house, is on fire. And as a citizen, I have a responsibility to help quench this fire. Our economy is in shambles. The youth are unemployed and they are very desperate. Ghanaians everywhere are going through very difficult times. They are lacking the most basic necessities of life. Indeed, this is not what our founding fathers envisaged for us. This is not what a country like Ghana, with tremendous blessings and resources, should find herself. My colleagues, we are in difficulty. We are in danger. And I want to inform you that the time for change is now. There's no other. It is now. And therefore, today, I want to announce to you, and I'm announcing my intention to contest for the flag bearership of the National Democratic Congress, NDC. Anytime the party opens nominations. I have led a great public and private life, one of success and accomplishments. I will offer myself once again to serve the land of my birth with humility and sacrifice.
Well, let's get into a bit of the details today. Why specifically he thinks he is the man for this job. My colleague, Kojo Brace, was at this news conference and joins us in the studio. Kojo, you cannot ignore his timing. I mean, we know that Ghana is facing worst economic crisis in a generation.
Sure.
This is a man who was once a finance minister. He must have chosen the timing. He must have, been pretty particular about when to announce his candidature. So, did he tell us, though, whilst he was doing this, what qualifies him? Because whoever is elected in 2024, when he's hoping to stand, will have one job that is getting us really out of this economic crisis back to recovery. Did he show any evidence why he's a man for this job?
Well, as we heard him there, he says we are, on fire, and something must be done. He says that during his time as finance minister, running the economy, 2012 to 29 to 2009 to 2012, the exchange rate, which has become a major issue now, stood at 1 cedi 20 pesos to the dollar at the end of 2008, and rose marginally to 1 cedi 80 pesos to the dollar. So he broke it down and said, well, so it means that in the whole 4 years, the cedi only lost 60 pesos to the dollar. So in average a year, it lost 15 pesos. That's how he put it. Again, he said that the GDP of the economy, the growth rate was 14.5% in 2011, and that was the highest growth rate in Ghana's entire economic history. And Ghana emerged at that time as one of the fastest growing economies in the whole world in the year 2011. He again says the economy registered longest sustained, and Evans, you remember this, single digit inflation. It registered the longest, single digit inflation over 31 months from June 2010 to December 2012. It was below. It was at a single digit, range. He says Ghana's economy registered a decline in interest rate to the lowest level in 4 decades. For 40 years, it was the lowest during his time. Again, he says He was the man who superintended over the budget, in which at the end of 2011, the budget deficit had reduced to 4% of GDP from 14.5% of GDP at the end of 2008. So when they came in, it was 14.5, and during his time, he was able to run it to 4% of GDP. That's the budget deficit. This is for the first time ever Ghana produced over 1 million metric tons of cocoa for the 2010-2011 cocoa season. And again, he says unemployment rate dropped from 5.3% in 2010 to about 2.2% by the end of 2012.
So a long list of things that he
Sure.
believes he achieved as a finance minister
Yeah.
that he takes credit for. We'll interrogate a bit of that pretty shortly with his team. We know that the president has been speaking recently, I mean, on the current economic crisis, and, you know, he's become very famous for making the pronouncement that to it, you know, money doesn't like noise. The former finance minister, who now says he's going to run for president, wants to have the last say on that.
He says that that's a statement he once made, but upon reflection, he's realized that, well, if people are hungry, they would have to make noise, and it's hunger that brings about noise. So it's not necessarily about the money, but when people are hungry, what do you expect them to do?
Let us remember that even though she can't pay the day, Nansu, a comfort the day. We have everything, but a come day. Now, me get they say, because we have everything, but we're not making use of what we have. We are suffering. We are talking. And we are being told that she can't pay the day. I said this years ago, but I don't realize she can't pay it by come back. So I come the Mr. President. What should we do? Let's arise, all of us, let's arise and build together to avoid the looming national disgrace. It's coming. Colleagues, we have no other option but to work hard to ensure that the disgrace coming, our children shouting, having no food to eat.
So what is he going to do to sell himself as a candidate? Because we know he's going to come up against a gentleman. Of course, John Mahama hasn't declared formally, but everybody expects him to. He's going to come up against a man who's been a former, you know, president before. He is well, marketed.
He
Everybody
was
knows
the
him.
head of the economic
Management team.
when he was
So
finance
what is he
minister.
going to do to put himself out there as the man who can really lead the NDC
So
into 2024?
Dr. Duffour says in the coming weeks, he's going to tour the whole of the country to meet with brothers and sisters to explain to them what he means by, the Ghana dream. He says that he wants to talk to Ghanaians about the challenges that is confronting all of us, to talk through solutions, and to explain to Ghanaians what he has to offer as Kwabena Duffour, what he terms the Ghanaian dream.
I see. Did he define this dream?
He didn't.
He didn't. Right.
But that's why he says he's going to meet people, Ghanaians throughout the country, to explain to them personally what he means by the Ghanaian dream.
Okay, thank you very much, Brace. Let's bring in former Deputy Communications Minister. He's a member of the Dr. Duffour team. Joins us on the telephone line right now. Mr. Kwaku, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Hello.
We'll also be speaking pretty shortly with Dr. Ali Duseidu with the University of Ghana Political Science Department as we begin to analyze his chances and what he really brings to the table. Dr. Kwaku, this is a classic political opportunism, is it not, when it comes to the timing of his announcement today? Choosing a time when we know that the economy is suffering its worst crisis in a generation, to announce that he's running and then picture himself as a man who quenched this house, which he claims is on fire. You chose this time so that you can milk the I guess the crisis we were in.
Yeah. Well, look, listen to me. Yeah, if you're describing this as political opportunism, it sounds to me as a rather unfair depiction of what is going on in this country. Listen, if you haven't been here for the past year, I can excuse you for not knowing the predicament that the country is in. But if you've been here, especially over the last year, then I would suggest to you that the term political opportunism is mischievous. The fact of the matter is, even the lady in the market knows that Ghana has come to a crossroads. All you have to do is go to the market and check into the price of rice or oil or anything else. And you find that we have an exponential explosion of price spikes. It doesn't make sense. A lot of people are very afraid, very fearful from day to day about how they're going to survive. So you should use that as a backdrop against which this conversation can make sense. So I totally reject the characterization of political opportunism. Here is the son of the soil, Kwabena Duffour, who you know has been at one time governor of the Bank of Ghana, another time as Minister of Finance. He's been an entrepreneur, and then the story goes on and on and on. You know, he's not an unknown quantity. And he is saying that he humbly offers himself for national service to help rescue our nation from where it is.
Yeah, I mean, so you're suggesting to me that when the team sat down to plan when is the best time to declare your candidature, you're saying that you didn't factor in that. Listen, Ghanaians are very upset now, especially days after the president spoke. This is strike when the iron is still hot. It never crossed your mind.
So I hope you heard. No, it's not about crossing my mind. Let's face the reality. I hope you heard when the president spoke. He said something about Sikam Pedede. To me, that was so ill-advised. I don't know who his handlers are, but you see, that statement calls for a rejoinder. Sikam Pedede. And so a com Fredede. Now, if you're going to tell me that is not true, you can't relate to that, well, okay, then that's your cup of tea. But you see, Sikam Pedede, a common so Fredede. And that is just the beginning of our story. The gentleman, Kwabena Duffour, indicated that when nominations are opened by the NDC, he will be throwing his hat in to run for flag bearership of the NDC. So I think in the coming weeks, we should stay tuned to what it is he will have to say about how he's going to work to help rescue Ghana from our current predicament. Unless you think we don't have a predicament. But if we have a predicament, then please stay tuned to what is coming.
So now he wants to be president. He's now formally declared, so we can scrutinize his track record.
Wait a minute.
I mean, just a second. He lists today, when he did a press conference, a number of things he claims he achieved or was achieved in the government under his watch as the finance minister. One of them, he says, is that in 2011, and he takes credit for this, that Ghana's GDP growth rate was 14.5%. Yes, that is a fact. But I put it to you, but that growth rate had nothing to do with Dr. Kwabena Duffour, nor even the government he served in. That is fundamentally down to the fact that we had just started producing oil in 2010, late 2010, just a year before 2011, and that became a big part of our GDP, not because Dr. Kwabena Duffour was a financial wizard or did anything magical to produce 14.5% growth rate that he now takes credit for.
So under whose watch did those results come? Listen, let me tell you what. If your attitude
it's not because he did, but it's not because he did anything particular.
Discount what Kwabena Duffour did, then I'm again promising you that in the coming weeks you'll find out the answers to that type of narrative.
Yes, I mean,
because what you've just said suggests to me that you want to distance the Duffour administration, the Atamil's administration, from what happened at that period in 2011.
No. We need to scrutinize this a bit more, Mr. Kwaku. So you take credit for 14.5% growth rate in 2011. can you pinpoint any particular policy that he introduced as a finance minister then that directly resulted in this growth rate that you mentioned and you take credit for?
So you tell me what you saw happening in 2011 in this country.
That's not my
because
question
you're asking questions. So you must answer some questions. What did you see happening in this country that you could not attribute to President Mills and Dr. Duffour and their team? They had an economic advisory council. It wasn't an economic advisory team. It was an advisory council that was made up of academics and other people who worked hardly, seriously, to make possible the results that we got. Now, I see that you have a narrative which seems to discount the work that President Mills and Minister Duffour did during that period. And I think that is not fair. It is not fair. People are very quick to claim credit for the things that happened under their watch. And these things happened under their watch.
Mr.
So why
Kwaku,
are you going to try to suggest that is not what happened?
Yeah, Mr. Kwaku, I'm asking a simple question, Mr. Kwaku. Dr. Kwabena Duffour takes credit for Ghana's highest growth rate yet, 14.5%. In fact, at the time, it was the highest growth rate anywhere in the world. I'm asking you to tell us what single policy that he introduced that directly led to this growth rate that he's now claiming credit for.
So do you think that what happened in that period was accidental?
No,
is that what you're saying?
That's not my question.
Was it an inheritance from the Kufuor era? Whose era accounted for that achievement?
But that's not my
question.
I'm
asking you.
Do you have a policy you can point to that says that is a result that then produced the growth rate you mentioned that he takes credit for?
The monetary policies that were initiated in that period.
What monetary policy?
Listen to me, that arrested the runaway inflation, that reduced the inflation during that period. I think I well know. I mean, yes, you are a journalist and you are spinning, listen to me, you are spinning a certain line. Fine, I hear what you're saying. But if this is the game you want to play, then get ready over the coming weeks because we'll talk about a lot of things. Okay? And I'm in a noisy, very noisy area anyway. I told your caller from the beginning that where I am is quite noisy. I have a lot of people here. I had to step away, but it is so noisy. If this is the trajectory, then I think you should get ready for a whole debate on who created the changes that changed the economy. Because I see where you're going. Listen, in this country, we're not going to play coronation. We're not going to have only one candidate is who we know.
But you said only one candidate. I mean, in the NDC, it's only John Mahama, is it not? You know
one
this.
One single policy, I think you're going to find out about many policies. Okay?
Well, I mean,
so call me at
Mr.
another
Kwaku,
time
Mr.
when
Kwaku.
it's better, and I can talk to you.
Well, Mr. Kwaku, you're on the line with me, and I know you can hear me. Well, I mean, it obviously drops the line there. But that's the chief spokesperson for Dr. Kwabena Duffour, who tonight wants to be president, has declared now formally that he wants to run for president. He's going to come up against John Dramani Mahama, who hasn't declared yet, but everybody expects that he will. I want to bring in now Dr. Alidu Seidu, political science, lecturer at the University of Ghana, analyst as well. Dr. Seidu, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you so much, Evans.
So let's start from where we just ended there. I mean, Mr. Kwaku was given to us as the spokesperson for the Duffour campaign. You should tell me. I mean, once you put yourself up and today you formally declare, you expect that your record will be scrutinized. In fact, that's what you're actually opening yourself up to. I wonder, give me your quick reaction to the way that interview was handled by his chief spokesperson on the matter, reading motives into questions, which I insist are pretty fair for a man who wants to be president. Isn't that central to the whole idea of trying to lead the people and declaring that you will run?
Thank you so much, Evans. I agree very much with you that once you bring yourself up for public position, your life is no longer a private life. People, rational voters will want to look at what you have on the table and what you are going to give. And that has to do with scrutinizing what you have done in the past. So your records will come up for critical scrutiny what you have done well, what you didn't do well, and what accounted for both doing well and not doing well, and its impact on where you want to be. I have listened to the engagement between you and the spokesperson, and I think Kwabena Duffour, as respected as he is in the NDC, and his demeanor and all those things, must be replicated in people who speak on his behalf and people who campaign for him. He, as a candidate, will not be able to have time to be everywhere and to speak to every radio station and every other individual or group that want information about his candidacy. So he should be able to train his spokespersons to reflect his thinking as much as possible, his mannerism as much as possible, his candor and his temperament. If his spokesperson begin to threaten the media and say, okay, if that's the trajectory we want to go, you'll see what comes up. I think his announcement will be a stillbirth, because you need to do this in tandem, in collaboration, and in conjunction with the media and other organizations that are interested and that has the capacity to expose and sell your candidate. So it is not a good way to start.
I was going to go to the substance then. I mean, so he's declared now. Does he really stand a chance? We all know, of course, John Mahama is yet to, declare, but everybody expects him to. Does he really stand a chance?
Evans, it will be a tall order for him. I think maybe, I'm not sure, but I think he's doing this for maybe 2028, maybe after or something beyond 2028, 2024. Because if you look at even the history of the Fourth Republic, it seems to suggest that Ghanaians have never given an opportunity to anybody to govern them. For the first time that you have contested as a flag bearer, President John Rawlings continued as a military, so he is an exception. But if you look at the first time President Kufuor contested, he never won. Look at the first time Atamils contested, he didn't. Look at the first time His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo contested, he didn't. President Mahama continued from his as vice president to president, and then he contested as a sitting president. So he is well known in the NDC. But Ghanaians have that element of hesitancy in just accepting a new flag bearer into government in that particular manner. So they will have to give him another opportunity to see how he manifests, how he conducts himself as even a candidate before he is given the nod. President John Dramani Mahama has been tried and tested, and he is a candidate that the NDC wouldn't spend so much resources to sell as a flag bearer. He's already known, and he has started behaving even in the presidential manner. If you look at his engagement with the media, the way he steps into national difficulties and present solutions and all those things, actually put him a heartbeat away from the presidency. Yes, I know it's going to be competitive, a very good run for the money of President John Dramani Mahama. But barring any unforeseen circumstances, former President John Dramani Mahama is likely going to be elected as a flag bearer if he declares his intention to contest.
So he's now thrown his hat into the race now. I mean, I was asking him about the timing. How much are you reading into this? Of course, he is a former finance minister. The economy is in crisis. The president just spoke on Sunday, and if you listen to the general view, people aren't happy. And then he chooses his time carefully, right? Is it not? And pitches himself and throws in our faces his previous economic record. I mean, this is clearly orchestrated, is it not? To pitch him as the savior at a time when people are suffering and calling to be saved.
Yeah, Eva, I think it's a smart move. Yes, this is the time that people think our economy is in crisis. It's obvious, and people are calling for the head of the finance minister. So it means that at this particular point in time, what Ghana needs is somebody who will be able to manage our economy in a manner that benefits everybody and trickles down to the ordinary human being. So presenting his economic credentials at this particular moment makes him the kind of messiah that Ghanaians are looking for. But even in that particular context, he's referring to his record under President Mill. But if you're going to pick it as an entirety, former President John Dramani was also the vice president at the time that he was the president. So if he's going to claim credit for that particular sector ministry, John Dramani Mahama can claim the same credit.
Especially
for the
when he was also
administration.
the chair of the economic management team and the finance minister. In fact, John Mahama was his direct boss as the
Yes,
chair of
so
the
that's the
economic
point I'm
management
making.
team.
If he has to claim credit for that particular period, he still will defer to His Excellency former President John Dramani Mahama. But at the time that former President John Dramani Mahama was substantive president moving forward after Mills, he had gone out of politics. So there's still an edge, a credit that former President Mahama can claim over him. So whatever achievement he can boast of was done in conjunction, and even mostly President Mahama can even say under his supervision as the head of the Economic Management Committee or team or whatever it was called. But I think it's good for democracy in Ghana, good for internal party democracy in the NDC, and I think he's positioning himself. We know if in the event that the NDC elects President Dramani Mahama and he wins 2024, maybe he's only doing 4 years. So at that particular point in time, there's still a lot of opportunity and for the NDC to look out for somebody. And if he throws his in hat now, at that particular point in time, he's not going to be a new candidate. He's already known by Ghanaians. He has campaigned widely. It will give him an edge over those who come after him.
I'm grateful, Dr. Alidu Seidu. Dr. Alidu Seidu is a political science lecturer with the University of Ghana. Earlier, you had Gideon Kwaku. He's a former deputy minister, former deputy communications minister in the Mills administration, served together with Dr. Duffour himself in that administration, and he is a member of the Duffour team and speaks for him as well. Listen, well, what do you make of the declaration tonight, and do you think he'll be a match for John Mahama when he finally also declares? Share with me your thoughts on Newsnight in a minute.